Hello and welcome to the Final Phoenix podcast. It's Laura Perry here and Robert Jones. So last week I threw one at Robert and didn't tell him what we were talking about. And I have a feeling he's doing the same thing to me this week because we said, "What's our topic?" I don't know. Just get us going and I'll start talking. So that's what he said. So what are we talking about today, Robert?
Well, we always have things to say. Whether they're worth saying or not is a whole different I guess the audience will be the judge of that. Okay. So Laura, when does the education end and the business begin? When does the learning stop and the money start rolling in? When does the all the research end and you can get to work on your business? When do you move from being a researcher to a business owner? Obviously there's a time for all of that, but I'm interested because a lot of times I'll notice products and even products that I buy or books or whatever, there's a lot of educational value in them and you're learning how to do something, but you're not really maybe applying yet. You're not making money yet, whatever you want to look at it, but you're on this path. And both you and I know that that can be kind of dangerous because you can be forever there. The learning never ends. We know it never stops. But then some things you get and read are pretty tactical. Like here's a method to automatic post on social media so you keep your audience and then you just do it, right? You don't have to learn why. So there's a person who goes, what's social media? Well, they're obviously, we can say you need to learn some stuff. You talk with a lot of people. We were talking the other day. You had a clarity call or a pre-clarity call with somebody that wants to make money, but they have nothing yet solidified. They're out there in the, I want to do this, but I don't know what I can do, which is a whole different place than the person you had the other day that says, I have these four options and I want to know where to spend my time. So I thought a good topic would be is when does the education end and the business begin?
Yeah.
Because there's probably a point. Now, I'll tell you my answer, and it's just going to be in one sentence. But can you come up with an answer in one or two
Yeah.
sentences?
Well, I'll try my best. I don't know about one or two sentences, but in my experience, we are able to serve at any point in time. We are able to help people. We are able to serve people. We are able to guide people, but we need to decide a way to do that first and foremost. If we don't have a way to serve, then we have zero clearly or nearly zero opportunity for us to even start a business. Like if we don't have a product, program, or service, like we don't have anything to offer, and we have to have something to offer, and in order to exchange that the monetary energy with our service, right? We have to have a service and the money follows the service. So first and foremost, I will say to serve people. You could do that from day one. You could do that at any point in your life. So that said, as soon as you start serving people, you will begin to evolve and then decide, is this a hobby where I'm going to be doing this for free for the rest of my life? Or is this going to be turning into a business? And once you decide that it turns into a business, there are two things that happen. You will start working in your business as a service provider, and then you will start working on your business, building the structure and the housing that your business needs to thrive. So I think as soon as you decide to make it into a business, you start differentiating between the two of what it is to be of service and in your business and to be a builder and the structures of your business and the systems and such that you need. So the other thing is it never ends. So if anybody is looking for oh, my education stopped, my learning stopped, my evolution stopped, like it's never going to end, but it's up to you to start, and then it's up to you to balance it. And it's also up to you to continue to grow and persevere, knowing that it's never going to end, right? So if you're addicted to learning and you're in that learning process all the time, thinking that you don't have enough information, that's a trap, right? And I know, Robert, we've talked about that. The people that are trying to learn so much and get a creation perfect before they offer it, it's like, no, create the service, offer it to the world, start building your business, and find your own balance that works for you to thrive. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, sort of. It's kind of, a bit of a trick question because you're right, it never does end. But if you think about it in broader terms, if you're going to say you're going to build a house, You buy the land. You get an architect to design the house. Those are called the plans. You change them. You don't like where the bathroom is. You don't like where the south facing window is because it's on the west wall because you have a bad architect. But you go through and you mess with those plans. But eventually the architect is done. You're done. And then you go to the general contractor and you say, build this dang thing. And then he watches over all the pieces. And then eventually you pull into your driveway. Owning a business is very similar. The problem is you're the usually in the beginning, you're the architect, you're the general contractor, you're the bank, you're the financier, you're everything, right? So you can get to the point. So the architect is always learning. The general contractor, material changes, codes changes, they're always learning. Um, Interest rates changes. The mortgage banker, they're always keeping their education up. And when you try to take on all of that, the trap can very simply be that you never get to the point to where you have a house because you are going to be, as soon as you get done with the architecture learning, all of a sudden the codes change and you never get out of that. So we have to understand that it is going to be a perpetual thing, but it also can be a trap. I think the education, and I don't, I kind of said that and I didn't really worded it very well because education should never end.
Mm.
But my thought is simply the when do you go from researching, building to running a business? And because it's going to be continuous, you're going to back and forth. It's very important to realize when you're working in your business and when you're working on your business, and you should know the difference. If you don't, you'll get stuck working in your business. So what's the old adage? I had a job and I hated it. The boss is a lunatic, so I decided to start my own business, and now I work for another lunatic. This
Yeah.
is right. But my answer simply, I said one sentence. My answer simply is when your business makes a buck, when your business finally makes a buck, you have did a product, you have gave a product, and you have received something for that product. So you made a buck. Now, whether that buck was a trade in services or if it was real dollars, that's when you say, I have a business. And now it's time to get a little bit more serious. Your learning will never end, and hopefully your business will never die. So
Yeah.
that was my
Yeah.
conversation because I just noticed a lot when I went past my bookshelf this morning when I was trying to think of really quick, what are we going to talk about? And I realized my books can be divided into kind of two, well, a lot of different ones, but two basic sections. And that is the learning of it and then the application of it. And if you're in the mode of learning, you need to learn something and you buy a product that needs to be distributed, it's going to confuse you. You're going to waste a lot of money and then you're going to come back to it like I have and you're going to say, wow, I didn't need that right then. I needed to know what that was for, but now I'm ready for it. And, that's going to happen all the time anyways, but if you're a little bit more straight on it, you can figure it out. So,
Yeah.
um, I've got a CRM, and the first time I got the CRM was years and years and years ago. And the person that sold it to me, we were too small. He shouldn't have sold it to us. But, he was a good salesman. Well, he was a horrible salesman, but he was good for the company for that. But I'll never refer anybody to that company. It was so complex because it's not what the technology was today. You literally had to be an engineer to understand and how to get this to work. So if I wanted to do an email campaign, this did it. If I wanted to do everything, this did it. But boy, did it do it really strangely. And we spent thousands of dollars on it, and it got to the point to where I'm going, this is crazy. We only have 200 people. I could do this by hand with less time and more efficiency than this program. It kind of turned me off a little bit, but that's because I bought a product that promised to solve all these problems that, quite frankly, I didn't have at the time. So, and then later on, I got a CRM that did its job, and I was in a different place. I already had the lists, I already had the students, I already had everything going. All I needed to do was build it.
Yeah.
And the
So,
learning of those two things for everybody was considerably different. The first one, I felt like I went back to school to be an engineer or something. The second one, I was just following instructions to implement it. Here, put your company name here, put your EIN number here, put your phone number here to get texts, get your 800 number. It was just fill in the blanks, and then I hit the button, and our CRM was up and going. Before that, I was literally designing the damn thing. I was, and I'm not, that's not who or what I can do. It's impossible for me. And that's kind of the difference was those two things. Now I could probably do it because I would never, but I understand what the business needs. So I kind of think if you know what side of the coin you're on in your business, you can decide what you're doing and whether you need it. So if you're on Amazon, ready to buy that book on I don't know. What's it called when you go out and networking? You need to learn to network because you're a introvert and you don't hate people. You just really, they drain your energy. So you got to get out there though, because nobody's going to buy your product. So you get a book on networking. That book talks about two or three other books about introverts. So now you're studying about introverts. Then you read about personality types. So you buy the book on personality types, which I have all these books. So guys, don't spend money on them. Just I'll borrow them to you. And then after the personality type, you start analyzing yourself and you realize that your whole childhood was effed up. And now you got to fix yourself. And now you got to go into the dark shadow of your past. And by that time, your business has done nothing. So if you know that that's the case, you can stop yourself. And I'm speaking to the choir a little bit because I've gone through this. And Laura's sort of my balance sometimes. She goes, "Yeah, you've already done that." And sometimes I say, "No, this book is about application." And she goes, "Oh, okay." Because she knows when I'm at which side I am. So you got to learn that about yourself. So you have a business and your education is always going to continue. You made your first buck, you made $1, you have a real business. Why do you think, you go to a store and they always show that picture of the dollar there? You ever see that? All the
Yeah,
businesses,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
the first
yeah,
dollar they ever made.
yeah,
And I'm thinking, nobody pays cash anymore. They're gonna put a credit card slip up there. But anyways, that's a representation of when they started, when they got their first dollar. And I think that anybody that has a dream, a life goal, or a business or a purpose, as soon as they get their first buck, they need to stop and say, okay, now it's time to get real. I have a business. I don't care. Get your mother to buy it. Then you have a real business. No excuses. Somebody purchased your product. Now it's time to make it better, and it's time to deliver it, and it's time to make money, and it's time to
yeah,
grow.
yeah.
So
And
that's
what
that's my two
that's
cents
your
worth.
okay. And I like that. And one thing I like to add is that, as we're building our businesses, working in them and on them, it's a practice. Like life is a practice. Seriously, like life is one big beta test to see what we like, what we don't like, what's working for us, what's not working for us. And everything in life is that too. We get to wake up every day and look at what we have and be grateful for what we have and, build the life we want in the way that we want to. And the business isn't any different than that. And I love that you used the house as an example because when if you've built a house before, you've got to survey the land, buy the land, get the loan, find the builders. And, there's a lot of processes in there that come with building a house. That's the systems and that's the structures. Building the house is essentially what we do when we're working on the business. We need the system, we need the structure, we need the flows, we need to streamline things. We really just need that space to create, right? And that is building the house itself. And I feel that a lot of individuals get stuck on building the house. They're like, I'm building the house, I'm building the house, I'm building the house. Um, so much so that they won't even offer a service. And they think that they're supposed to be making money just because they built the house. And maybe they're really good at building the house. But you cannot make money just by having systems and structures. And the what working in the business does and what the service that you offer is actually making that house a home. And I feel like if you're not if you're in one or the other too long, if you're making a home and you're not maintaining the home, we know that, the screen door falls off and the electrical fails and the yard needs to be mowed. Like you have to be able to live in the house, maintain the house, while you make it a home, right? So I love that you use that analogy of building the house because that's the difference between the systems and the structures. Working on the business is building, and working in the business is actually making it a home where it's a love of yours. It's something that you put your heart and your energy into, and just allowing yourself to go back and forth between the two as you get better and better and as you make it exactly what works for your life. And I think for each of us that's a little bit different.
Yeah, I always like building as an analogy, because you have codes. rules, sets of plans. Sometimes, you know, when you're doing your own thing, you probably shouldn't, but you go like, I'm okay not following codes. Like I put drywall up and every nail in one of our locations, the nails had to be 16 inches apart. And this guy was the inspector that gives us a permit was he was really, really bad to the point to where I threatened to get a lawyer and go to court because he was ridiculous. He came in with a tape measure and checked every drywall all the way through, every one. And one of the drywalls, all of them were perfect. One of them we had already taped before we realized we are going to do that. And even though you could see the dimples, he made us tear it down so he could do it. And that's the point where I said, okay, he's run us through the ringer. But those codes that are there for a reason. And maybe he thought he was just doing his job, but you know a power tripper when you see one. But building, if you skip those things, okay, so talking about your business, if you have a system and you skip them, there could be consequences. So I've done a lot of rebuilds in my schools and stuff because, I'm cheap labor, right? So in my Bellevue location, I had this wall and we had moved it, and then we moved it back. Long story short is that I should just left it alone. But I decided we have to move it. And studs can be 16 inches apart, right? Or 24 or 22, whatever. But 16 is like code. And the builder I'm working with said, okay, you need this one. And I said, well, can we do less? He goes, well, you can, but nothing, it's not a supporting wall, but it's not up to code, but nobody will know. I said, great, I'll save half the money and I'll put 2x4s this far apart. Oh, a couple of years later, I went to hang mirrors on that wall, and you can figure out what happened. I couldn't find a stud if my life depended on it. And that's the point where I realized these codes are actually for a good reason. I spent maybe 6 hours hanging mirrors that I could have done in 30 minutes with a tape measure if the studs were every 16 inches. So ever since then, I'm like, what are the rules? What are somebody smarter than me knows why to do that. And I think about building your business and sticking into the education and always working on the house. You end up like with a Winchester mansion. Rooms that go nowhere, doors that open up to nothing, and you're always building and but you're not really doing anything. So there's a point where you have to maybe look at yourself and ask yourself, what are you doing right now and why are you doing it? So I think most people, not everybody, but I think a lot of people, one, they don't think that they have anything to offer that's worth it. And yet they think they do, but they really, because they look and they say, oh, that guy over there is offering it and he went to college. Oh, that guy's over there's a doctor. Who's going to listen to me? So they have to overcome that. And then they have to get to the point to where good is good enough. Like once they start getting it out there, better to try it today and better your product. So what was Microsoft's model? Ship then fix. I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but they would ship their product with bugs and
Mm.
people would buy it knowing that that was going to happen. Then it would break and then they would fix it, but they already got your money. I mean, I'm not telling anybody to do that intentionally, and I think they did as they had a shipment date. But anyways, that's my personal
Yeah.
philosophy. But you got to better your program is going to be forever, right? Because as you grow, you learn, you just go back and you fix it. But don't wait until that point is. It's like before you make your first sell, you're going to wait before you make your first sell. I will get serious when somebody buys my product. It's a
Yeah.
chicken and egg thing, right?
Yeah, and people do tend to think that like they'll create a product and they're like, it's not done yet, it's not done yet. And it's like it's never going to be done. In fact, you might just scrap the whole thing in 6 months and make a new one. And then you'll make a new one and then you'll have six. And then they're like your children. You don't it doesn't stop growing. It evolves and it changes into something new. And it also helps you, become more of who you are as you're building this dream. I love Robert Schuller's quote. He said, build a dream and the dream will build you back, right? It's something along those lines. But the other thing about the codes in the home is that those kind of remind me of the principles in business and marketing. It's like, here are some codes. There are no rules. Here's some things that have been tested. Here are some things that work, and I do feel like there are some strict principles, which I'll tell you what, I think we've gone over this conversation a little bit before, but it really can just be narrowed down to a couple of things. But We can choose to follow the codes, the building codes, right? We know that the roof is going to stay intact. We know that the floor is going to be made of bamboo. We know that the tile's not cheap. We know that things are sturdy and the structure has been tested by other people. Or we can recreate some things too. That's the fun thing about business is our creativity, and we can exercise our creativity, and that's how new systems are built, right? So we know, and new principles are built. So we don't have to follow the rules, but there are rules out there that have been established and tested that we can apply to our own businesses. Um, but I know that Robert has two rules in martial arts, and I think in business it can be narrowed down to that, to just two simple steps. One is to serve people. Um, Serve people. If you're serving for free, you don't have a business, you have a hobby, and that's okay. But serve, I mean, our level of prosperity is directly proportionate to the amount of service that we provide people, and I'll say that over and over again. But the second step is to accept money, and then you have a business. Like that's it. It's so simple. You get to, offer your services in exchange for monetary value. It's so simple. That's literally all that you have, and everything after that is an evolution of you and what you've created. And it's going to continue to grow and grow you as well. So, Robert, what are your two rules in martial arts? Now that I said mine, serve and then invite others to receive your service in exchange for monetary value. What are your two rules?
Yeah, so if you follow these two rules, no matter what martial art you do, you'll always be successful. So it's taken me 30 over plus years to come up with two rules, and then you have to learn how to live by these rules. Rule number one is don't get hit. Rule number two is do the hitting. If you follow those two rules, you're good. You're good to go. Don't get hit and do the hitting. And it's a funny thing, and we laugh, and all my students know those rules. Even my kids, which sometimes, you're telling 8-year-olds, don't get hit and do the hitting. And they go home, hey, mom, I learned two rules. But the fact is, like, the higher you get up in the art and the more simple that rule is, the more you realize that it actually defines a lot of who and what you are and what the concept is. And sometimes, especially as martial artists, I love every art. We can really geek out on it. Okay. There are some forms that are probably useless for self-defense, but I love watching them and it's art to me. And I don't care what, you get all these people, and usually they're students, not teachers of some style, and they say, this is useless and this is stupid. And they're doing harm to the whole industry, actually, and they bother me. But anyways, because sometimes I do forms that I know are useless, but they feel good, so they're not useless to me, right? They make me feel good, and that's why I do them. And if somebody goes, oh, that won't be used in combat, I say, yeah, but maybe my good mindset and the flexibility I'm gaining could be used in martial arts. If I just decided to do all just for, to be combative, which is the lowest level of the art, which is why I started, by the way, I would throw out 90% of what I did. But when I first started, I had everything I did was combat oriented, right? So I kind of formulated that, those two rules is because as I'm watching my students, the most successful of my students don't get hit and they do the hitting. And there's a lot of ways you can not get hit. You can walk away from an argument, okay? You can run, you can block, you can evade, you can diffuse. There's a lot into that. So yeah, so those rules are pretty much everything that we live by. And I have a few other rules, but those are the two that every student I teach, they know those rules. And I like your rules too. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because within that we get to do whatever we want, right? Like, yes, there are forms, and yes, there are practices, and yes, there are learnings, and that's part of the fun and the creativity of building a business is that just like in the art, especially Kung Fu, there's an art to it and there's a science to it. So in order for us to enjoy both of those, we get to practice both of those. And then like what you said, like a form that doesn't feel good to you and other people, or that does feel good to you and other people might see it as a waste, is like my Mondays. My Mondays are like me working on the business mostly. And I show up on Monday like a jar of scrambled eggs. Like I don't really know, and I'm supposed to make sense of what I'm doing for the week. And I do a lot of like tedious stuff. Like I make sure my desk is clean. Make sure my papers are where I want them to be. I look through my books and just make sure that my mind is in the right place. So yes, anybody looking at that from the outside would be like, that's unproductive. What's actually on your schedule? But it's like that's what I need to do and I enjoy that. It sets me up for my entire week or sometimes the next 2 weeks. And so for me, it is effective, right? And I think that's part of the art of business and the art in martial arts is getting to expand and explore within what works for us.
Yeah, I used to we used to have Monday morning meetings for decades. And pretty much going over the same thing. What makes a business run? How to answer the phone, how to greet the door, how to teach a good lesson. After a couple of decades of that, you kind of think like, oh, I'm done with this. But I decided I hated Mondays because I was there at 10 o'clock and I left work at 11 o'clock. They were the longest days. Uh, we did do a lot of working out. So I was like, I'm not a Monday kind of guy. I like my weekends and I can't get back into it. So I'm going to change that because it will work for me to Tuesday. We will have Tuesday meetings. I started hating Tuesdays.
So you just didn't like meetings.
Well, it took me a decade or so, but then I realized, man, maybe I'll change this to a Wednesday or a Friday. Now it happens to be on Friday now, and I like Fridays, so I finally found a day that works for me. But yeah, it wasn't the day of the week that was. But that's where we can get confused, where we think it's something that it's not. I thought it was Monday when really it was just the meeting. I just had done, I mean, my staff hadn't been there as long as I had, so I kind of had lost track of why we did the meetings. It was actually really good. One of my staff members been with me. He said, "Yeah, I used to hate them too, but now I look back and think they were the best thing we ever did, and we need to get back to them." So yeah, so knowing yourself and knowing your business, like Monday, what you do on Monday. Maybe it's busy work or whatever. If somebody says, "Well, you're successful," I'll do it on Monday too. And Monday is not the time they should do it. They will think that what you're doing doesn't work, opposed to maybe it doesn't work for them. I have students that usually lower intermediate belts. They'll say this technique doesn't work. And what they should be saying is, I don't understand this technique and it doesn't work for me. They should use proper vocabulary because somebody can make the technique work. And also some techniques are just designed to get you more flexible and faster. They're not meant to work the way they think they are. But you can't explain, it's like you take I'll just use engineering because we're talking about building or architecture. You take a 101 class. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't take a 301 class, you'll be lost. But
Yeah.
you're asking questions that should be answered in the third level class in the first level. And I think what people need to do is really understand where they're at in the building process, like what you do when you go through what some of your clarity calls. Where are you at? How many customers have you had? Do you have an email list? And it's not to grow them, it's so that you can get information and know where to start with them. If somebody says, I have 5 customers, I have 20,000 people on my email list, and I have 2 products and I'm working on a third, that's a different conversation you're going to have with them than the person that you had the other day that just says, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I think I can do this. And you're like, wow, can you pick one so I can talk with you? So yeah, people understanding like, so a business starts when you make $1 is just simply meaning that you have something to sell, whether it's good or bad. Hopefully it's the best product you have at the time that you have it. Stop trying to make it perfect and get out there and sell it and see what they say. And then start improving it. And then, like you said, you can always come back to it and mothball it, create a new one. But don't use that as a excuse never to get out there. There's the fear of rejection is a legitimate fear. A lot of people have it without realizing it. Just they do a lot of things so that they don't get rejected. If they can conquer that, if they have no fear of rejection, there's an exercise once. If you couldn't fail, what would you do? Right? Take it a little further and think about, well, if I have this thing to sell you, I'm going to sell you a product, and you say no, or you ask for a refund. Is that going to ruin my life? Is that going to be, so yourself, as the more we get out there and the more people we have, the the more complaints you're going to have. It's just a number, it's a statistic. You don't ignore them, but you realize if you're just selling things to your best friends who are buying because you're their best friend, you get no rejection and you
Yeah.
won't get any betterment. But if you go out there for the real world. So I just think that, once you sell something, it's time to sit down and say, okay, this is for real. So I would tell everybody, as long as they have something to sell, go out there and learn to sell the damn thing. Just that's a doing thing. It's not a I'll buy 5 sales books. I'll take 7 courses. Go out there and throw your offer out there. Somebody tells you, yeah, you're too forceful. Really? Why do you think that? Everything is an advantage to learn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you'd even say hi to me and you start to shove your product down my throat. It's an immature salesman. Oh, really? What should I have done? Well, you should at least ask me if I wanted your product. You're selling daycare and I don't have kids.
Yeah.
Ah, that's awesome. You can learn, but if you don't do it, you're not going to learn. So I think everybody should have 2 rules. And I think they should, I
Robert
do.
loves the 1-2 punch.
I do.
Or
Okay. And I
3 if
think,
you have to. 3 if
well,
you must.
I always think there should be 3, but they should be 2 rules that they kind of live their life by. Like
Yeah.
maybe, provide a service and do no harm. I don't know, just
Yeah,
think
because
about.
you can make it whatever you want within that, right? I do think the marketing world and business world has made things very complicated to think that things need to be done in a certain way. And
Oh,
honestly,
it's different.
you
No, no, no.
have to plant the seed,
No, they
right?
made it complicated so that they can take your money and do it for you.
Mm,
This is the agency model. I will get you 20,000 new Facebook likes and sell your stuff, and you will just sit home in your underwear and make money.
yeah.
It's just, and it's not true. I went through my feed yesterday. I had some time and I was looking at everybody that was trying to sell me something, and they were promising in their way some pretty big things that anybody would want. 50 instant students. Who wouldn't want that other than it would be a nightmare on trying to figure out what to do with them all. But I looked at that. I know a lot of people in the martial art industry, and I don't know anybody that's gotten those things consistently over a long time until they have their systems and their business down really well.
Yeah.
So one of the guys said he got X amount of students, and it was the best thing he ever did. And he was a testimonial. I don't know if they pay these guys or what, but I looked him up and I looked at his history because I was bored and I went through some things, and he's a pretty good guy. Here's what the ad doesn't say: that he has 14 staff members. He has 4 locations, and he's not a joker. His systems are tight. His everything he does is tight. So maybe they took a little bit off his plate and helped him get the same results, but they did not build his school. They did not do the things. He just got to the point to where he realized somebody else can do this section for me and handed it off to him. And they did a good job for him. But that doesn't count for the guy that has 1 school and a quarter of his students. So
Yeah.
anyways, get your rules down.
Yeah, exactly. And I've gotten one request recently, and we had like a mutual friend in common on Facebook, and so I checked her out, and the person that was sending me a friend request said like, make $50,000 in 90 days,
Oh,
starting from
great.
scratch, and I was just like,
Starting from
no.
scratch.
Yeah, I was just like, no, thank you. And that because we know it's BS, right? You have to put in the work and they're just things. And I'm not saying that it doesn't work for anybody. I'm just saying, no, thank you. Not for
Okay,
me.
so did I sent that guy? I wish I could pull it up here to show people, but I'll just tell you what it was. Okay, so it's this guy in the desert cartoon crawling with the half the
Mhm.
clothes on. You can tell the sun's beating down on him, and there's a fork in the road. And it goes like this, and he's over this way about this far, and he's just like, okay. And it says, "Get." The sign has an arrow pointing the direction he goes. It says, "Get rich quick." 21 miles. And then the other side has uh, "Get rich, work your off 1 mile." And yet
Yeah.
he's choosing the 21 mile. I
It's
sat there and
so
looked at
true.
that.
It's
Oh, I've
so
done it.
true.
I've done it. I sit there and said, like, the easy way is so inviting. It's just so
You know
inviting.
why? I'm going to get esoteric here. You know
Okay,
why?
let's get esoteric.
It's because in the formless world where we came from and where we actually still are to an extent, everything is instant. Like everything is instant. And I feel like we remember that. I feel like everybody that's come to me and been like, I need help because I just can't do this. I like a family member. I really want to get in shape and I just don't like how long it's going to take. It's like that's because we know, I feel like we literally have a remembering of how instant we can bring things into form and into creation in a different reality. And so we're thinking that it's going to be the same. Like we're a little bit misled, but because what it takes is our consistent energy into a project or a service. Like it takes our consistent energy because we're feeding that energy into what we're building. However, we remember it being instantaneous, but this 3D physical world is, this wasn't just brought into form at the snap of your fingers. There's a lot of, post-it notes went through a lot of development, right? Like it wasn't just something that happened instantaneously. So that's why I think we are true. It's true. It's accurate, just not in this reality. In this reality, we need to learn how to use our energy and to create things in a much different way.
Well, I also think though, not being so esoterical, but I also think that when people are generally successful and all the things lot fall into place and they're enjoying it and they have some education and they're successful at it, a lot of those stuff is easy.
Mhm.
It is easy for whatever reason. And it could be you rolled the right dice, you were at the right place at the right time, who knows? But I have a lot of acquaintances that are very successful, and one of them says that he does 10 projects, loses money on nine, makes a
Mhm.
fortune on number 10. He goes, the problem is I don't know which one's going to pan out. So I have to arrange my life that works so that uh, I can afford to lose 9 out of 10. Okay. And he goes, that's a true stat that he's had for the last 20 years. So when he's at six projects, he's looking for four more. He's out actively looking. And these projects, like one of his projects is building a power plant. These are not small things, yet he's making it look effortless.
Yeah.
And so then he's telling the story about the one out of the 10 the other day, and he made his shareholders and himself millions of dollars. And they got part of the company and everything. It's awesome, right? And then we were talking about it. He goes, yeah, but it took me nine failures to
Mhm.
get that. And I lost a lot of money on those, but I knew what made it easy. What I'm trying to say is what made it easy for him is he knows his formula, he knows his math, and he doesn't get involved in the emotional side of things because it is math. And so it doesn't take him down the wrong path. So if he said that in the beginning, he would do a project and it either would make it or not make it. And if it didn't make it, he was like, oh God, maybe I'm not good at this. Until he figured out that no, it's not, it's 1 out of 10.
Yeah, and I like that you brought that up because it reminds me of like failure and rejection fear of failure, fear of rejection tend to stop a lot of people. And I feel like I tell people failure actually doesn't exist. Rejection doesn't actually exist. What you're getting constantly with failure is feedback, like go this way or do this thing, right? And with rejection, it's really just people that are not going to benefit from what we have to offer. And like we need to get rejected because it's not going to work for everybody. And what will work for the people that it's meant to work for, they will stick around, right? So the other thing is like we need to get rejected so that we can actually make our products and our programs better so that we can get feedback from humanity as well. Um, so I was bringing this up because in the marketing world and in the business world, with programs and such, we do create so much. And it's very true that only one or two may actually move the mark. And then one every once in a while will just put you on the map, right? So we have to try these things over and over again. It reminds me of like, Taylor Swift and some of the other famous artists that created probably let me just say out of 100% of their music, only like 18 to 20% you ever even hear of, right? Because that's how much they have to create in order to get those 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 hits and the money to pull in. So I was just thinking too that like if we don't try and if we're not putting the energy forward, then we haven't created enough in order to get the feedback that we need, which is those successful programs. And the other thing that I thought of, I just had a quote kind of come into my mind is that rejection might hurt you, but fear of being rejected hurts anyone that you could potentially help. Because if you're not willing to put yourself out there, then you're basically cutting everybody off. So if people aren't willing to get rejected, then we are helping zero, right? But if we get rejected every once in a while, we're going to be eventually helping more people than we could otherwise. So I just wanted to say that I like that you bring that up, because the more we create, the more statistic possibilities we have at some of those creations being very successful, even though I fully believe that all of them are going to help somebody. It's just that some are going to be more successful than others.
Yeah, I think the fear of rejection or the fear of failure or the fear of somebody making fun of you or whatever has cost people a lifestyle that they actually wanted. I think it cost people way more than okay, let me put it this way. The fear of failure has cost people way more money and effort and time and stuff and success than a good comment has. I understand the positivity, encouragement. I'm a coach. I get that. Hey, you can do it, the belief. But I think that there's a lot of that won't do something because, or if they start doing something and somebody says it sucks, they just clam up. They just
Yeah.
clam up. And I traveled that path. I mean, I've been there. I know what it feels like when somebody says that you're not good at something, especially when it's true. Yeah, once you figure out that it's true, that you're not good at it, but you're getting better, they can't, that those things don't hurt you anymore. You just, that person isn't your, okay, so when I was a young instructor, I had this concept that I could teach anybody. This is what all good instructors think. There's not a single person I cannot not work with until I got this other person that came in that had been doing martial arts all his life, and he was like 20 years older than me. And I was like, yeah, I've heard this before because I had. That means that you've trained a couple hours a day, not a day, a couple hours a week. And I train 4 hours a day. Let's get you on the mat and see what you can do. And within about 15 minutes, I realized that I am not capable of teaching this person. He doesn't need what I have at this point. Maybe in 10 years, but does he want to wait that long? And the old me would have just tried to do that, and then he would have said something like, you don't have the skill, and then you feel all broken up and all that. But in this case, I just realized that this isn't to either of our best time to spend with each other. And after the first lesson, I brought him to my office and I just said, you've got some great skill, you got this, and I'm going to recommend that you find somebody that is older than you, who's trained longer, because you spent a lot of great time doing this. And I mean, I do have a style I could teach you and stuff, but it's not going to be what you're looking for. All right. And he actually kind of wanted to sign up because I was pushing him away, but I wouldn't sign him because I was serious about it. I said, no, this doesn't matter. And he came back like a year and a half later or something, and he found some old karate master to study under or something, and he thanked me because he really wanted to. He really would have fell for it. Basically, he goes, "Yeah, you could have strung me along for a long time, and I get it." He goes, "I'm really thankful," and he's actually sent me people, people
Yeah.
that because his style doesn't it's not suitable for everybody. But that was kind of the first one where I realized doing the right thing is rewarding. Even if you don't get rewarded, it's more rewarding. But also, I didn't feel I didn't have that fear of failure. I didn't have that, oh my God, I can't do it, because it was a true fact. But if I would have flipped that and tried to sign him up, and then I called him up, hey, why didn't you come in? Why didn't you sign up? And he would have told me the truth, what I told him, it probably would have devastated me. I would have felt like it was a personal attack when it really wasn't. So I really think that people, especially doing a business, they got to get a little bit of a thick skin, and they have to, like, I like you're saying there that there's not failure, there's just feedback. I use that all the time on the mat. There's no such thing as failure unless you don't learn from it. Then you are a failure. But if somebody comes in and says, you suck, you say, okay, great. Let's take a look at that. And it could be true, or it could just be somebody having a bad day. If it's true, you have the power to do something about it. You can find another coach. And that brings me to the other point that I see a lot of people do, is that they see somebody that's better than them at the service that they're doing. What they need to do is stop seeing that. They need to see the customer or the person they're going to service is at different levels. So there are people that are down here, if you're a beginner that needs you, that isn't suitable for that other guy that has 4 PhDs, right? So that's, I mean, that's, we all have people that are way up there that we'd love to work with that we're not ready for. I've made the mistake of joining masterminds that I was not ready for. I paid a lot of money to sit around and listen to high level things, and I'm going, I'm not.
Mhm.
I just got to
Yeah.
figure out how to open my email box. You guys are talking way too much for me.
Yeah.
So I think, part of it is getting out there, and I'll tell everybody this. This is my practical thing. Get out there and sell something, or try to sell something, and then analyze what you did so you can get better. So what I used to do, and this made me really good, is if after I was done in the office with somebody, they would leave, I'd shake their hand, whether I signed them, whether I lost them, or whether I didn't want to sign them, I would flip their sheet over, that we have a personal analysis sheet, an application. I'd flip it over and I would write down what went well, what went bad, what I think I could do better, and what I think the results were. And then I would just put it on my desk and I just go through that. And then once a week or twice a week, I would pull those out and see if I'm right. So I remember this one guy, I said, uh, didn't like him. He didn't like me. We don't get along. He's not going to be back. He lied to me. Nothing I could have done about it. That was basically what it was. And he came back when he said he would. He turned out to be a great guy. And my analysis was just wrong. But I learned from that. But most people do this. If something goes wrong, this is the point I'm trying to get at. Most people will do this. If something doesn't work, they will look at themselves, they'll look at their product, and they'll try to fix it. But when something goes right, they need to do the same dang process, because just because it went right isn't going to get, that's actually the ones that went wrong are going to move the needle further. If something goes right, you can always do something better, and you always did something wrong. So why not, instead of worrying about winning or losing, why don't you take a process that allows you to get feedback, whether you win or whether you lose?
Hmm.
So your brother was a professional football player, right?
Hmm.
So when they won the football game, whatever we call these things, okay? When they won, um, they still went into the locker room and watched the films, and they didn't sit there and celebrate. They celebrated after the game, but next practice was they watched the winning thing and they still went and they fixed things. They didn't say, we don't have anything to practice. And they do that when they lose. The process is exactly the same. It's just funner to do it when you win, but you
Yeah.
need to set up and do the process either way, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell the people that they sell something for $1 or $10 or $100. Okay, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? How am I going to improve? Somebody doesn't sign up, do the same thing. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What do I need to improve?
Mhm.
And if you do that, you won't get that stupid emotional. Do you recall I'm just thinking that hit me here. Your first big rejection that hurt you, that you can laugh at now. I can tell you mine, but that really affected you more than maybe it should have. You actually have I don't know, because you don't have that kind of, you're not built like
No,
that.
no, because
So,
actually, this is my first rejection was when my first rejection. We don't have too much time left, so
I know.
we're gonna tell this story, and then we're gonna give
Okay,
you
do it
some
quick.
pointers to head
Well,
out with.
I
But
also want to say my first rejection too, so go
yeah,
quick.
okay. So my first, and let me say only rejection.
Okay.
Okay, only rejection when it came to sales. I was like 14 years old and I was selling Cutco knives. And it was like door to door back then. And I'll tell you why it was a rejection and why it hasn't happened to me since is because I was following whatever their process was to sell knives. And I felt weird because like the movie Scream came out like around that same
Yeah.
time and like one of the things we were told to tell people is that this is the knife that was used in the movie Scream, right? And we're
Oh
like
my
on their
gosh.
front porch with like knives and I just couldn't for the life of
Oh
me,
my gosh.
since I was doing something that was so out of character for me, I felt like they rejected the system that I had just learned. So I didn't feel personally rejected. I just felt like I'm not good at sales. I don't know how to do this. So the reason why I haven't been rejected since is because I just invite people. I invite people and I love to get no's because that just means that it's not a good fit for them. They're not ready for what it is I can offer, or, maybe I need to pivot my own business and coaching a little bit of a way. Like it's not rejection to me because it's just learning and it's also just connecting with the right people. So I don't look at it as rejection. But that said, I'll just summarize that little rejection thing and you could tell your story by saying, I think we're all very natural at there's a part of us that knows how to create relationships with other people, and there's a part of us that knows how to invite people to hang out and get results or make progress or meet new people or whatever it is that we're inviting people into. I feel like that's more natural to us than learning a script. The funny thing is though, when it comes to business and we put on this like business hat, we overthink it. So like when we're inviting other kids to like our kid's birthday party, or we're inviting people to a wedding, or we're inviting people to experience anything with us, we're not sitting there with our business hat on going, is this the right 8-year-old birthday party for you? Like we're not going into an analytical space. So it's very natural. I'm just saying it's very natural for me. And I almost ruined my ability to sell anything because I was learning a script that I didn't actually need because I just love inviting people into new experiences. I love inviting people to wake up to the world. I love inviting people to wake up to themselves. Um, so
You just
that's my
don't
point.
like you just don't like inviting them with a big butcher knife in your hand.
Yeah,
It's a little
yeah.
difficult.
With that script, I was like,
No,
this is
yeah.
so,
Well, I've sold
yeah.
like over, wow, surely over $10 million worth of memberships, if I think about it. And I've trained other people to sell over, I guess in the long run, we've well over 20 million over the last 30 years and stuff. And I've had a lot of no's. I've had a lot of rejections. And I'm kind of like with you, oh, that didn't work. What did I do? Or maybe it's not suitable. But in the beginning, it was hard. When I first started, it was if somebody didn't buy, I felt like they didn't buy because of me, not because it wasn't right for them. And I don't know, that took me a couple of years to get over, like years. And I didn't have a choice. And that's why I like scripts and that's why I like systems, because I could, even when I doubted myself, I could at least follow something and then provide a living for myself, right? But my first rejection that I remember, anyways, are the one, I mean, we all have little things, but the one that came to mind really quick, I said, oh, I remember this. It was sixth grade, seventh grade. And there was a party with all the popular people, right? And me and my best friend were he got the invite and he asked if he could take me because we were always together. They said no, and so he had to tell me that I couldn't go, and yet he still was going. And we were such good friends back then, still are, that I kind of got hurt more that he was going than that I didn't get invited because I honestly didn't even like these people. But I didn't realize that at the time. I just got the 1-2 punch. They don't let me to the party, and plus my friend is going without me. He came back at like an hour and a half afterwards and said it was the stupidest party he ever went to. It was dumb, and let's go play some
Mhm.
pinball because we played a lot of pinball back then. But it's still funny, but I still think about that. That was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me. I mean, I didn't sit there and change my lifestyle or get all depressed, and I just got really hurt.
Mhm.
And then throughout high school and everything, that group of people, I just kind of watched and looked, kind of, they were never my people. They were just never that anything. But back then, we're in seventh grade. We want to hang out with the popular people. So that type of rejection is can affect some people and other people. It just they go, okay, I'll go do something else with somebody that matters. And I wish I would have had that attitude back then. Maybe it'll make me less sensitive, so maybe I don't. But that's the only one. Like you got the Cutco knife story with the
Yeah.
butcher thing. I got the biggest thing was, my friend got to go someplace, and I had a Friday that I couldn't go.
Well,
And you got to understand back then, we had to get a ride to the parties with our parents. So we weren't so cool anyways. So
no. And
anyway,
and 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 your story is about relationships and mine is I thought you were asking about business because yes, I've been
oh, I
rejected a
just, well,
lot from
what my
like
point was,
from being a child in middle
yes.
school and that oh
Well,
yeah, I was rejected and I
my point
rejected
is
people because
rejection is
I
the
didn't know.
same no matter
Yeah. Yeah,
what.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
feedback. These people that didn't want to be around me were not my friends. My friends, I got great friends from high school and junior high school. I don't see them anymore because I don't live there, but these people never over the next 5 years ever even went into my circles. They just didn't go. So
Yeah,
business is the same way. If I would have had
exactly.
my mindset now as a business thing, I would have looked at that and I could have done my analysis. Oh, interesting. Why don't they want to be around me? Do I want to do something about that? And I know why they didn't. And the answer is no, I didn't want to change my personality to be like them. That's the worst thing I wanted to do. I was an individual and I didn't follow along with, I didn't wear
Yeah.
the up collars like I'm doing now and all the preppy stuff. But yeah, so business is the same. The difference is that when I was growing up, I was a member of Junior Optimus, and we had to go. We were really poor. That area of school, not just me personally, even though it was true, but the whole area was. And in order to do anything, we had to sell things.
Mm.
And my first selling project was selling potatoes. Yep, potatoes in Idaho.
Yeah.
Okay, bags of potatoes in the poorest neighborhood of in Boise. And I was like the top salesman every year selling potatoes. And I never really thought about it because I just wanted to go to Disneyland or I wanted to go to the Dodgers game because that's how we got money because this was a junior optimist, pretty good thing for kids. And so I got a lot of people just shutting the door on your face, going, "You go try to sell potatoes in Idaho." Just think, I don't know who came up with that. So I kind of got used to that. If you don't need potatoes, you're not going to buy them no matter what I say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Okay.
anyway, okay.
Well,
So
I
that's
want to hear
okay.
more about Robert's potato story, but we do have to go. So I'm going to do a wrap up here. So first is to just understand the difference between working on your business, which is the structure, the systems, the foundation, and then working in your business, which is, building the home that you're going to live in for the rest of your life, because you are stepping into your life's work, even if that life's work changes. So understanding the difference. And then also, my schedule of working on my business and my business has changed. It's probably going to change 10 more times or more in the next few years. But, it used to be do videos this time. And then, I worked a lot on creating the structure of the business. And then I was able to serve people in the extra time I had. And then I realized that I needed to focus on serving people and then building the business, working on the business and the extra time that I had. And I feel like it just ebbs and flows as to what is needed as long as you're paying attention. So there's that, but also just get out there, start now. You're planting a seed. So serve people, serve people, serve people. Even if you're not charging anybody, just be of service. Figure out what it is that you can do to offer people as far as solving some kind of problem or bringing them a solution or giving them an experience. And just offer that, because you can't be a coach. You can't have a service until you're actually providing something. And you also, can't have a business without, um, receiving monetary funds in exchange. And, that's another conversation as we go into more forms of abundance that you can receive. But, get no's. Get as many no's as you can. I remember a coach once told me this isn't about getting as many yeses as you can. This is about getting as many no's as you can. So that encouraged me to just get more no's and ask more people. Um, and yeah, don't hold back. Don't let words or feelings like failure or rejection get in your way, because the if you look at it through that lens, it's going to stop you in your tracks every time. And life is about learning. Life is one big beta test. Your business is one big beta test. You're literally going out there and serving and living, and we're doing our best in each and every moment. So, Robert, do you want to say anything to finalize as we wrap up today?
Yeah, I just think everybody should live by my two rules. Just
Don't
don't
get
get
hit
hit and do the
and do
hitting.
the hitting.
Okay, make a product, sell the product.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
serve and
yeah.
accept money in
Serve,
return.
yeah, serve and actually that's yeah, we can't go into that, but that's very hard accepting. Some people don't feel worthy. So that's the other problem people have is like, why haven't you sold your product? Maybe it's not a fear of failure. Maybe it's a fear of accepting, getting help with something. Interesting. But I think that right now I just think that the business starts when you actually make a sale. And I think that that education is going to be continuous. And what you said is right. Some days you work on your business, some days you work in your business when you're wearing all the many hats that a soulpreneur has to wear, until they can afford to hire it out. You just need to start creating your systems and you need to start being aware of what you're doing. So, like, you know what you do on Monday. I bet you if I asked you what hat you had on, it could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be filing. I don't know. You probably could tell me. There's a long time ago that I didn't know the difference between working in and working on. You make more progress working on your business, but when you're a solopreneur, somebody has to do the damn work. So do both and offer it and see what happens. I think it's good.
And
So
enjoy the ride.
and enjoy the ride. And don't look toward that end. This is my theme for the last little while. Oh, I need to make $1 million. You can set that as a goal, but then forget about it and go to work. Because if you think that, you're going to judge everything you do based on a fictitious number that you just made up. And one more thing, by the way, is when you get there, you'll find out that whatever that number is, it's not enough. I heard somebody say that the other day. Yeah, I thought I'd make $10,000 a month. And once I got there, that's really not a lot of money. I don't want to do that. I need to make more. So putting these arbitrary goals, that's what they are, is arbitrary, but they can kind of keep you on track. But just don't fall victim to, I didn't hit that goal, therefore I'm a failure. That's where people start judging
Mhm.
themselves in the
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Hey guys,
Keep it
that was
loose. Keep
it.
it loose. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.